Well, here's the short version of my longer video of why I believe that the Voynich manuscript is not meant for, the public to view. It was only meant for the creator of it. You know, a simple thing. Okay, everything that we know of the Voynich manuscript that comes from Mr. Voynich himself and his obsession and stuff, you know, uh, understanding its pedigree, basically who owned it, how it got into by his hands, and the oldest, you know, record of that he obtained of who owned it, and how they obtained it, whatever. And whatever was written about it by the said owners, such as like what salesmen said or what was passed down about whatever knowledge what this thing is. And a lot of times, a lot of things like this, they're just odd things that very wealthy people, especially nobles and royals, that collected it just because it was odd. That's it. Sometimes it was because of people's thinking that, oh, this could be, demonic or it's magical or whatever. Sometimes it's just because it was just odd. So, anyways, of all that stuff that I said, the reason why I would consider it meant for the creator of it, or, because it could just be is a collection of several documents that were later comprised as the manuscript, what we know as the Voynich manuscript. Um, because a lot of times that's what they end up doing was bind them together to create a manuscript of a collection of works. So it can be easily obtained by the viewer of it, And of course, it's only one of a kind. That's why I consider it to be for the creator of it in the first place. Because if somebody's going to create this, usually it has to be for themselves, especially for what it looks like. I know the whole thing, it looks like this, most likely it's not that. But on this thing is the writings in it, yes, like I've said before, that and others have said it before, that it does not follow any known language. Even if you transliterate it to any kind of language, it does not follow the norms of any said language for any period in history about how any language works. It just does not do that. It's also its characters, in other words, what you would consider a letter. Each letter or a syllable is so predictable that it has the same character order always, and it repeats itself constantly because actual language does not have the same set, string of words repeating over and over and over, unless if it's done on purpose, such as, Bart Simpson writing on the chalkboard over and over of what he's not supposed to do, what he got in trouble for. Just writing it all over again and again and again. You probably had to do that when you were a kid and got in trouble. Had to write on the chalkboard. The other reason why is, well, continuing on with the reasons with this, it's written in Voyniches as word gibberish. Because since it's not, an actual language that we know, like even a known language at the time, it wasn't written in any known written language. That's why it would not be meant for others to view. Even if it was composed for a particular person, then again, it's still meant for that person because they probably did. If it's like that, then they probably wanted something as a curiosity, just to do a show off that they have this mysterious thing. So they get somebody that has the materials that they need or whatever, or they provide them. A lot of times it would be really old materials to give it more authenticity, that it's actually much older than what it really is. And have them having somebody that has skill on this to create such magnificent gibberish on purpose to make it look mystical or something strange or whatever for the owner of it. So somebody paid for it to do this, so they can show it off. It's like, look at what I got. People did stupid shit like this. If you got the money and you wanted to have is something that no one has ever seen or known of, something super fantastic, you hired somebody else to create such of a nonsense as a spectacle like this, just to show off to a select guest. But typically, a lot of the stuff was only meant for one person to obtain and view and whatever. Just how it is. So, the other things on why I also considered is like, okay, let's say that this is actually a grimoire. In other words, a magic book, a spell book, a wizard writing his ridiculous gibberish of spells or incantations and such. Okay, so anything that's of that thing, that it's magical, typically you're going to have it written in code or hidden writings, as it were, because that would be considered heresy. Just how it is. Yeah, things like that would be considered very much heresy. Can get you killed. Unless of the church or whatever declares that you're nuts or you're just making this up. Just want to show off, act like you are, you're a flim-flam man. Basically selling them is BS and claiming it's magical, whatever, Because there was charlatans in the past, and that will continue to happen. Nothing new. So anyways, because let's say that the Voynich manuscript is actually a grimoire. Why I would say this? Well, you have is the drawings, and then with these drawings you have is the writings. But if it is a grimoire and it cannot be translated into a language, let's say it was, that it's actually not what people consider, that it's probably a mixture of different words from different languages, but using sounds. In other words, like kind of like hiragana or katakana, a syllabary system, or a mixture of a syllabary with an alphabetical system. But making it simple enough, and you're wondering, like, why does it repeat itself over and over of said writings? Because probably it's a mantra meant to be repeated the same line over. Maybe it's meant as sounds, so not actual words, like, or something, kind of like musical notes, or whatever. That's also another thing. It could be meant as vocalizations of notes or musical notes and such for this incantation. Or it could also just be have no literal translation for it on purpose, that these symbols are just a magical set of symbols, like a magical incantation, the way it's written and its order meant to be that particular thing, and it's done multiple times throughout the whole book. It's written in this way to specify as a protective magic or a magical spell placed upon the page itself to protect the work, what it is, like, the whole thing is a magical object as itself, like each page is a magical spell onto itself, or the whole thing as a collection is meant as a protective spell upon the drawings itself to protect it. But again, it would be for one person to view, to obtain it, like usually the creator. If it was a grimoire, it would be for that creator of it. And of course, it would also, no matter what, would be hidden away. Not meant for the public to view, because heresy. Kind of simple. So these are like kind of the reasons, of it. And of course, of my own original understanding is like, okay, you have the drawings and then the writings that came afterwards. It's obvious. Because nobody writes and then makes these big gaps on purpose in their writings and then later put a drawing in there, because that's just kind of ridiculous to do it that way. It's just easier to put your image there and then the writing. Yeah, not the other way around. And why I consider it to be, something of practice? Well, a lot of multiple drawings of different things, of people, people bathing, or of plants, practicing of drawing plants and roots, and stuff like this, and then the texts on it. Well, the text itself is repetitive. Like I said before, it just looks more like somebody who is practicing strokes and stuff, instead of making it as just marks, but connecting it to make symbols on purpose, for practicing of the capabilities of using of a dip pen. You dip your pen in ink and whatever to scrawl. Instead of looking like it's just scribbles, you want to make it look as clear as possible of it being like letters or whatever. Just for practice, doing it over and over. And the other thing is, like, it could just be like somebody happened to make something that looked neat. This was their bit of fun and whatnot. It's like, this is what they did, and like, whatever. I might actually post the longer one so you can understand why I shortened it. I kind of went off the rails on the longer one to give more context, but this is just kind of the other reasons. And yeah, and by the way, I've never even seen anything on it or any discussions that the Voynich manuscript to being a grimoire of some sort, or some sort of magical spells or incantation device. I haven't seen anything of that sort. But if you have, or could you like put it in the comment section about it, of what you found? And by the way, what do you think what the Voynich manuscript really is? Because these are just kind of theories of what I believe it to be, and this is the video about the reason why it was never meant for public view. Simple answer. It was never mass-produced. That's simple. It was never mass-produced during its time. It was not. There was never any other multiple copies. That's kind of the reason why it was never meant for anybody else except for the creator, or the one that ordered the person to create it, as what I said.